Hey, it's me, Egbert. EGGBURT. Check out my website at egbert.com. Now it's back to those two dudes who told me they would bring in big ratings. They better are their history. Here are Brad and John.
But what happened last week when they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States? Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
John can't hear that. You didn't hear that, did you?
I did hear that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the Hulkster right there. Good old Terry Bollea. He's a beer magnate now, MAGNATE. Although you could probably describe him as a beer magnate, MAGNET, because he was known for pounding Miller Lights.
John, I have the solution to the whole thing. I've done much research on this and done a lot of thought about this. I have the solution to the Republican Party.
Oh, you do? What is that? First of all, anytime a German tells me they have the final solution, I get a little nervous.
I think I'm more Russian than German, but that's a whole other story. Okay. I'll tell you, maybe we'll do a segment. Maybe we'll do the third segment on that. I have the solution to the Republican Party's malaise as I see it. Okay. But I said I'd talk about this, and I want to talk about this. Yesterday, I go to, and this is interesting. This is John and I. John, when's the last time you were inside a Quick Trip? Can you tell me what year it was?
No, I would. If I'm on a road trip and I have to urinate, I stay uber hydrated. So I'll go into a gas station if I have to use the urinal. Yeah.
Okay. I've been fighting off some kind of a weird bug for like about a week now, and I'll be honest with you, because yesterday was probably the day that I probably turned the corner. And yes, I've taken the COVID test and it came back negative. So I don't know exactly what has gone wrong with me. But sometimes when I'm not feeling my best, I will try something new, which may sound weird, but just thought like, okay, I'm just going to try something. I go into a Quick Trip yesterday, and I see this thing, and it's in this weird color can. I'm trying to figure what color can this is. It's like a tan can, and it says Pepsi Nitro. Now, first off, I don't quite understand the size of the can. It's a 13.65 fluid ounce can, and some people may say, well, that translates into the metric system. No, it doesn't, because it's 404 milliliters. So it's some bizarre, weird number they came up with, 13.65, okay? And it says vanilla draft cola, and then it says artificial flavor. So I think, well, you know what? I'm going to try that, okay? And on the bottom of the can, in big letters, it says, you ready for this? I'm ready. Nitrogen infused cola. Now, here's my interesting thing about this is, I am very familiar with the gas nitrogen, okay? Matter of fact, probably about 30 or 40 feet from where I'm sitting right now, I have not one, but two tanks of nitrogen. And you may be saying, Brad, why do you have nitrogen? First off, nitrogen is very commonly used in broadcasting to pressurize transmission lines and things like that. And secondly, because I am an EPA-certified HVAC guy, nitrogen is extensively used in the HVAC world to purge, coolant lines, and also if you're into, and this is like nerddom, okay, if you are into high-end plumbing, when the guy comes out to put your plumbing in your house, and if it's copper plumbing, if you are really, really, really high-end nerd, you will have him flow nitrogen while he's soldering or brazing the lines. Okay, have you ever heard of this before?
No, I haven't. I haven't done much soldering since middle school shop class, Brad. Why don't you enlighten us?
The reason for this is, and it's funny, my son who's in the plumbing industry talks about this, when they go in and do like the piping systems for hospitals where they're putting in oxygen lines and things like that, the lines that go into each of the individual rooms, when they braze those lines together, if you don't flow nitrogen on the inside of the line, it essentially creates carbon, which after the line cools down will flake off and become a contaminant within that line. But if you flow nitrogen through the pipe when you're brazing it or even high temperature soldering it, it displaces the oxygen, so therefore there's no carbon being formed because there's no oxygen to form the carbon, if that makes any sense. Now, here's my point of coming to this, and once again, I'm holding this can that says nitrogen-infused cola. There's been a big controversy in the United States about the death penalty, and part of it revolves around the fact that they use particular drugs which the United States manufacturers have decided they no longer are going to give those drugs to the penal system in the United States because of the fact that they don't want to be essentially have blood on their hands of essentially saying their drugs have been used to kill people in prisons. Are you familiar with this, correct?
I am, yep.
Do you know what they're using as a alternative?
Is it nitro?
It's nitrogen. Now,
no way, really?
Yes. And here's the thing. If you take safety classes in this kind of stuff, and once again, I have taken safety classes, there was a very sad thing that happened several years ago, maybe a couple decades ago. There were, I think, 3 or 4 NASA guys who were killed in an accident where they had a clean room that was pressurized with nitrogen. And I don't know exactly why the reason was for this one, but the clean room was pressurized with nitrogen. And there was a system that was supposed to purge the nitrogen out of the room before the maintenance guys could go back into the room. And somehow or another, either someone forgot to do it or it malfunctioned. And these, I think it was 3 or 4 guys, walked into this room, which had been pressurized with nitrogen, and they died. Because what nitrogen does, it displaces the oxygen. So what they're doing is, and I think they've done this already a couple times, they're simply getting a bottle of nitrogen, which you can go to like any of your industrial gas places, Airco, or a lot of times you can go to like an HVAC place, HVAC supply place, and you get a tank of nitrogen. You put a regulator on it because it's, if you just take it right out of the tank, it's coming out at like the 2,000 psi. You put a regulator on it, and all they're doing is they're just putting a mask on the person that they're going to give the, execute. They just flow nitrogen. And essentially what it does is it displaces the oxygen and they die. Because when you put nitrogen, essentially eliminates the oxygen. So here I'm holding in my hand a can of soda that says nitrogen infused, and I'm going like, now hold on a minute now. I don't know if that's something and because there's been a controversy about this, because then even some of the industrial gas suppliers will go like, okay, hold on. We're not giving the prison system nitrogen. But the crazy part of this is, it's so readily available that I'm telling you that the listeners of the show right now, they could get up and if they said, I'm going to get myself a tank of nitrogen today, if you were determined by the time, noon, you'd have a tank of nitrogen. Now, once again, you have to be careful with it. And one of the things that a lot of times if you're storing tanks of nitrogen, you're like, technically, you're supposed to keep them outside in a ventilated cabinet, like if you do oxygen and acetylene and things like that. But back in the day, one of my jobs at the original KSOQ, when our transmitter was on top of the Marquette building, which was the old Boatman's Bank building downtown, which is now a condo operation, our feed line that went up from the transmitter to the antenna on the tower was nitrogen pressurized, and we had to have haul these great big bottles, this big like welding tank kind of bottles. And the problem was the elevator only went to the 19th floor, and we had to go up 2 flights of steps to the 21st floor where the transmitter was, and it was a pain in the rear end. And we had a regulator, and the interesting thing about it was, I think back in this, I think to myself, we were never given instruction on nitrogen, the death qualities of nitrogen. I mean, for example, if one of those bottles would have, developed a leak when we walked in that transmitter room, bang, we could be dead. And the thing, what happens is you don't know what hits you because all of a sudden you start to slowly lose consciousness, and then before it's too late, you're gone because you pass out. Then your lungs are still trying to, work and inhale oxygen, but it's being displaced by nitrogen, and you're dead. And quite honestly, it's a very painless death because you pass out first and then you die. So to me, I'm thinking Pepsi, nitrogen-infused cola. I don't know if that's the right thing to use. Now, the interesting thing is if you read the little thing on here, it says smaller bubbles, smoother taste. So I'm going like smaller,
interesting,
smaller bubbles, smoother taste. Now, I will tell you, when you open up the can, and quite honestly, I had one yesterday during the day, and I liked it so much, I went and got another one last night. And I thought to myself, I like this. But once I sort of drank it for a while, I thought to myself, you know what this tastes like? It tastes like...
Does it taste like coffee?
No, it tastes like flat soda. It doesn't have that...
Oh, really? No, like not enough carbonation.
Yeah, it doesn't have like that tingling on your tongue kind of thing. But if you get a chance, try a can. It's called Pepsi Nitro Vanilla Draft Cola. First off, I like vanilla cola, but secondly, I question the aspect of it being nitrogen infused, because that's like saying, hey, come, we've got a new salad dressing for you. It's arsenic infused salad dressing. You'd go like,
I think the saddest thing is I hope that we never play a clip from September 24th B Block. If Brad one day just has enough and offs himself with nitrogen, we're going to have to play the clip where you say, it's actually a very painless and in some cases enjoyable death. I hope we never play that. By the way, you should point out that this segment is brought to us by CK Supply, which is on Manchester, where you can get nitrogen, you can get CO2, you can get helium. Brad also has helium tanks at the office.
I do have
and
a
I'm
helium
glad,
tank.
Brad, finally, I've been nagging you about this for now 204 episodes. We're finally addressing the huge demographic that is really into copper welding. And I keep telling you, more and more people, the kind of people that listen to our show, want to hear more about the ins and outs of copper welding, Brad. Thank you for finally addressing that.
For the most part, you don't weld copper. You either braze it or you solder
Whatever.
it.
See, that's exactly it, Brad. Thank you. Thank you for diving into that.
Okay. Secondly, John and I had this conversation where John says he's never dialed 911 in his life. I've probably called 911 hundreds of times. I'm heading eastbound in 364 yesterday, probably around noonish, 1 o'clock or something like that. It's raining. And as I start to make that wide curve, people know exactly what I'm talking about, where you start to make that wide right-hand curve. You're coming up to the Heritage Landing overpass. There's a car spun around backwards up against the center median barrier, backwards up against the center wall, okay? And a few hundred feet down the street, down 364, there's another car spun around backwards up against the, it's on the shoulder, but there's like a retaining wall right there, spun around backwards against the retaining wall. So I dial 911, and this is what sort of drives me nuts. I don't know if you know this or not, they pretty much all of the 911 operators have changed to a new format where they will ask you, where is your emergency? And you don't dial 911. So they used to say, what is your emergency? Now they say, where is your emergency? And I always ask when I'm driving, what department is this? And the lady says, it was St. Peter's. Because you don't know when you're, driving. You don't know what cell site you're going to end up in and what 911 you're going to get. And I tell her what I've got. She says, oh, that's Highway Patrol. Let me transfer you. 2 minutes later, it rang and 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 rang. I reported to the Highway Patrol dispatcher, okay? Didn't think much of it. The guy ask me my name. He doesn't know my phone number because of the fact that even though the original 911 call came into another dispatching center, sometimes when they transfer the call, the caller ID does not transfer, which I think is a problem, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, so I gave the guy the thing. I said, I don't know if it's a fresh accident. It's just weird. There's one car backwards against the center median, another car backwards against the right shoulder retaining wall, blah, blah, blah. About an hour later, my phone rings. No caller ID. I'm going, I don't know if I want to answer that. It might be John Combest, but that's a whole other story. So I answer the call, and it's a state trooper. And he first off thanks me, John, once again, he thanked me for reporting the accident.
Oh, wow. What a good Samaritan, Brad.
He
Go ahead.
thanked
so
me
you got
for-
the attention
John,
you
did you hear what I
and the
said?
validation that you wanted. So go ahead. So what did he say?
John, did you hear what I said? He thanked me for reporting the accident.
I know. You got the validation you wanted. Go ahead, Brad.
But he wanted to know if I actually saw the accident because apparently there's some finger pointing going on between the two drivers. One driver said one thing, the other driver said the other thing, and the two stories are diametrically opposed. And he asked me if I saw it. I said no. I said I just came up on it, and there was a car on the left, which was backwards, car on the right, backwards. I thought it was weird, so I called 911, and he told me, John, you ready for this?
I'm ready, Brad.
I was the only call they got because
I need a hero.
Because
I'm holding out for a hill. Brad's a call on the phone.
everybody else was doing the John Combest thing. Oh, somebody else will call. Oh, somebody else will call. Oh, somebody else will call. I'm not going to call. That's too much trouble to hit 911. It's 3 digits. I have to move my finger twice, 911, to place that call. I'm not going to call. That's too much trouble. Right, John?
I mean, here's the thing. What could possibly be better? First of all, nobody would have ever seen that crash on the side of the road if you hadn't called in. Nobody a minute later would have called in. And secondly, Brad, that is the pat on the head that you needed. It had been probably months since someone on a 911 line got a chance to tell you, thank you so much for calling. And, if you go more than 3 months without somebody patting you on the head, Brad, what are you going to do?
My toupee will fall off because they're pushing down the Velcro. That's what it is. Okay, we have to take a break. Are you going to hang up and call me back from the mobile place? Okay, let me do this. We'll be back.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?